Alright, we're going to be rejetting this carburetor. And the reason for that is I put on these Vance and Hines Cruzer exhausts. And a lot of people were saying you don't have to necessarily rejet, but I was getting a few problems. So I went on a trip to the mountains and I was getting a lot of pop-in on deceleration. It sort of has increased a little bit since I put them on. And I checked the spark plugs, they're looking a little bit light brown going on to cream color, and I kind of wanted to fix it before it became a bigger problem, I guess. So I ordered this jet kit from DynoJet, and I'm just going to do a stage 1 rejet because I've only changed the exhausts. I haven't changed the intake or anything else, so I'm going to keep it really simple and maybe adjust the fuel air screw later on. So the first thing we're going to be doing is removing some of these hoses from the carburetor. So I'm going to start with this hose here at the back. Hopefully you can see that all right. Okay, so pop that one off. This one here. Oh geez, it's a bit worn out, that hose. I'm going to undo that clip at the back and that'll tell me how much more is needing to be undone. So they look like they're just like the air filter hoses, or clamps, sorry. I'm going to try taking that one off. That's not really easy to get to, is it? Stuck on these screws here because you can't really get a good angle on that. I'd love to know if anyone's got a better way of getting to that, but it just needed quite a bit more loosening off, and then the whole unit just popped off basically, and we're just slowly taking things apart as we need to. Okay, so that there, I'd like to get that hose off if I can help it. I don't want to put too much pressure on the other side, so we might as well just disconnect it. So I'm going to come in here from the back, release the clip, and that part should just come off. It's a bit tight. Tight as well. So not a lot of room, I'm noticing, to really work on this. It's quite tight. I'll have to get that clip around this side and then loosen it from there. There we go. Beauty. Okay, that goes there, and we'll put that back there so we know where it came from. If we can get it back on again, that is. There we go. Beauty. Okay. Alright, and we'll find out what else is sort of holding, restricting us a little bit here. Feels like something else
attached. Some hoses at the bottom. I reckon they're worth taking off as well. It's to give us a little bit more room to move if we can get those off. Oh, how much movement have we got? Okay, so I've loosened these screws off here. This one here in particular was very tight. I'm really quite glad it actually came off, because they were starting to burr a little bit. I don't know if that was like that already. But anyway, we're opening it up, and I am going to throw something under here as well, because I feel like there might be a bit of fuel in it still. And we're kind of just sort of seeing how we go. Make sure we put our screws back, keep them separate from the others so we know where they're from. And then there's 2 screws at the back. And I think some of these hoses I'd rather replace, because they're looking a bit cracked. I'm glad they weren't as tight as I was expecting. It's still tight enough. I mean, I'd be surprised if they've actually been opened ever. I bought this bike about 2 years ago. Going on to 2 years ago. Second hand. And I don't think the owner did a lot of modification, which is quite good in some ways. Okay, here we go. The bottom is opening up, and there is fuel in it still. Quite a lot. Geez, I thought I'd burnt all that off, but I hadn't. Alright, what we're going to do, I'd rather pour it into something, but I'm just going to have that there a little bit more just in case, and we'll see what we're dealing with here. And what's that cord on? Spring. Okay, so that's given me access to, I can see one of the jets in there now. It's actually it's not that bad in there. Okay, I've got to get this cover off somehow. Okay, so it turns out that actually just can be slid and rotated like that, which is quite useful. I'd like to pour that out if I can, but it might just evaporate. Okay, so I'm showing you what I'm up to now. I'm going to open these top screws here. This obviously needs to be, I can't see any way to get to it other than bending it up a little bit to get to that screw there. I've got my vessel screwdriver, which, geez, they're good, hey. I don't think I could get half of these open without these screwdrivers. They're just so solid. They just fit in so well. So I'm going to take those out, and they look like they're different screws to the top ones, so I'm going to take those out. I'm actually going to be quite careful I don't drop anything into there. And I probably should have done the top first. Okay, so that is now open, and I'm going to open that up. Okay, so that is what it looks like in the top section. Interesting. That's a hell of a spring. I'm going to actually tuck this back in if I can. I've just got this thing about, I don't like dropping dirt from the top. Alright, so there's our spring. And I'm going to read over this a little bit again. And that's our diaphragm. So the needle is in that. Okay, so I've pulled the diaphragm out of the top of the carb. It's got the needle poking through. I'm going to take a Phillips head screwdriver and undo it in the middle. Okay, and then that thing has come loose. So you don't actually have to screw it, it just sort of rotates left and right, which gives you access to underneath to the needle. Okay, and we'll pop that out. Jeez, look at that, isn't it amazing? Okay, so that's the stock needle. I'm going to put that in here, so I have that. Okay, we're going to try to get this E-clip onto the needle. It's actually surprisingly difficult, but I'm trying the pliers. It looks like the pliers have done the job. So it needed to be clipped on the second groove, which is what the instructions say here. E-clip and groove second from the top. Okay, and then it says here that a washer will go above it like so, before that is inserted. Okay, so I'm guessing that will have to go. Oh, I see why people put grease on it to stop that coming off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it and lower it in if I can from the top. I don't know if I've going to get a grip. There we go. So I've got the grip with the needle nose pliers. Slide that down, and it's the washer and everything is still seated on it correctly. Okay, and we're going to drop this in. This was an interesting piece, this. It's not going to be magnetic, so it probably won't stay in there very well. Oh no, here we go. Oh jeez. Okay, let's actually use our friend the needle nose pliers. They're a little bit better, and I want to check that everything's still seated correctly. Okay, it is. Oh jeez. Oh, let's try that again. So that is almost seated right. There we go. Alright, that's seated in there correctly, and then we'll lock it off. But tightening it's like so. And I don't know if you can see that very well, but that plastic flange actually appears to hold it down. So it looks like we've got our needle set, and it's behaving as a needle should. I just paused that to make sure that that washer wasn't jumping around when that needle moved, and it wasn't. So I don't think I'm gonna muck around too much. I'm just gonna put that back in. We've followed it as the manual says, and that's gonna be interesting seating that again. I know there's a trick to this. Ah, okay, yep. So that needs to come around, and there is a flange, like a little piece casted into there where that bit of rubber will sit. I'm guessing this is all just to seal it properly. So I'd say this is pretty important. It's to get it sitting right. Or I'd assume you'd have some leaks. But anyway, we've done our top part there. Our bowl, how's our bowl looking? I might actually give that a bit of a clean. So what I actually did was I just got a bit of fuel out of the bottom of the carb, on a rag or my old pair of socks. I'm just using that to do a bit of a clean over. And I might just pour a bit of that in there if I can. I'm pretty happy with that. I've given that a clean out. I can't see any particles or anything. It's definitely cleaner than it was. A little hair there. Yeah, our next part that we're going to be following is putting this spring in, like so. So basically just doing exactly what we just did in reverse, but with a new spring. So I'm pretty happy with how this is sitting, and this spring will have to go in like so, I'd say, to be flush against that top section. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and it looks like there is a little front section that needs to go. Ah, look, so there's a little bit of metal there that overlaps, and I'm guessing that'll sit here at the front, because it looks like that's the only thing that needs a little extra piece. Oh look, and you can actually see right there where this has been seated. Okay, so there we go. Looks pretty good. Okay, let's get our tiny screws. Now I saw a few videos for this, but for changing the jets, but I didn't see any for the spring and the needle. So this is my first time doing this. But it's all seeming pretty straightforward so far. Okay, oops. Gonna do these up. Actually, I'm gonna swap screwdrivers. I feel like this one grips a bit better. I'm not going to do them up too tight yet. And this is our clip, which I think was like so. Let's try not to lose that screw, because it could just disappear into somewhere where it shouldn't go. So we're just doing that one up now. So theoretically, our top section is done. Now the next thing I have to do is, according to the manual, there's different size jets, and it all depends on how much air is free flowing from the exhaust. So 2-inch inner diameter. If it has less than a 2-inch inner diameter, I can use the regular jet. So I'm going to go out inside and get a measuring ruler and measure. Alright, now that I've got my trusty ruler, we know 2-inch was, any lower than that we can use the stock jets. So we're going to check out these Vance and Hines Cruzers, and we're looking there. Okay, so we're well under what we need to be, so we can use the stock jets. That's actually good news. Okay, so I'm going to lift the bowl slightly and get that reservoir in. Look at that, it's evaporating pretty quickly. It's awesome. Alright, and then I'm going to now take out that first jet. Let's see if I have the right tool for that. So it looks like a flathead would be better. I've got just the one right here. That should fit, and we'll just see how tight it is, because this is probably stock. Okay, so I'm just going to dry that off. It's a bit of fuel coming through. And then I'll finish it by hand, I'd say. Okay. It's our first one. I'll dry that off a bit more and store that in here where we're putting all our stock parts. Because if I sell the bike, I would like to restore it to factory if I can. I'm looking at the stock jet, and I'm looking at the new one, which they recommend 1.122 DynoJet. Now, they look almost exactly the same. Yeah, they pretty much look the same when looking through lights, so I'm going to put in what they recommended and go from there. So that's got to go back in there. And this is kind of interesting because they're talking about a mixture screw as well, but I know these are kind of hard to see if there is anyone. And I've heard people say that they're sometimes hidden away. Now, from what I've seen and read, don't tighten this up too much. Get it nice and snug. And that's enough. We don't want to shred any threads. And then we're going to spend a bit of time and try to find the mixture screw. I don't know how well you see this, but it appears that this is the fuel mixture screw. I have no idea how I'm going to get to that, but it seems like there's different places that sell adapters, so that might be one of my next jobs. Alright, gave this a little bit of a clean, just so it seats properly against the surface. I'm going to check underneath it. It looks okay. Alright, I'm going to bring it back together. Start putting these screws back in. I had that one screw that was nearly stripped out. There it is. I almost want to have that back where it went, so it's easy to deal with. That one might need a bit of a turn. Just to get it sitting right. Those ones will be hard to get to. I think the bigger one was better. Okay, so these are quite awkward to get to, especially the back ones, and it's not hard to drop them as well, which is what I'm trying to avoid. That's good. Yeah, you know, tight but not crazy tight. We don't want to damage the screws. And in the manual it probably tells you what torque rating. I just don't have a tool that I found works that good for screws. But I'd love to find one. Alright, so that's all put together. And I don't know if you can see that little screw right. I'll get a screwdriver and point to it. I don't know if you can see that screw I'm on there. So basically the instructions said to turn it all the way, very delicately, to the end where it stops, so clockwise, until it sort of feels like it's gone tight, but you don't want to do it too hard. And then basically 2 full turns back. That's what the DynoJet recommended. So that's what I did, because prior to that I started it up and it still felt like it was running lean. It still sounded, and the exhaust sort of was still making a certain sound that kind of just seemed to indicate to me it still wasn't getting enough fuel. Just barely enough, you know, but it seemed to run a bit better doing that, and I'll take it for a proper test run at some point. So basically I'm pretty happy with that. I've followed the DynoJet instructions, so it must be what it's meant to be, I guess. Alright, so basically I'm going to start putting this carb back on. All the hoses, make sure you don't miss any because you can get coolant. What I did before, I didn't attach the coolant cable properly and it started leaking out. You don't want that while you're riding. So, alright, cool. Let's see where we are. Okay, so we're going to put this back on again. And these, I've got to find out a solution to this, but I'm going to do this for now. Tighten these screws up as best as I can get to them, because I don't want to be burring them. But I just don't really, maybe a right-handed, right-angled screwdriver, I don't know. The other one is even worse. So I'm trying to keep them seated as best I can. Oh, bloody hell. Yes, if anyone has a better solution here. I did see that they make fuel air mixture screws that were a bit longer from the US, and I'm thinking I might get one of those just so I can tune it and not have to take everything apart, because this is it's a hell of a job. Take this all apart every single time you need to adjust something. And those are the only clamps that really hold the carburetor, so you want them on pretty tight. Well, actually, that being said, maybe they don't need to be super tight because there's still the air filter that bolts on. But relatively, you don't want it coming off. So I'm going to just do a little bit more. A little bit. That one feels good. That one needs a few more little turns. Not doing it tight, I'm just doing it till it's got a good firmness to it. Alright, cool. Now I'm going to start looking around, making sure all my hoses, which I've already gone through and put on, but just make sure for final inspection that things are looking, I was going to say seaworthy, but more roadworthy. Especially out here, you don't want to break down if you can help it. So that one's on, that one, that one, that one. That one I didn't take off. And then obviously that coolant one I put back on again because I noticed it was leaking. I don't want that one leaking if I can help it. Alright, sweet. And then that big one there looks pretty good. I like it sitting in the rubber, so you know it's sealed before. Alright, cool, Clarky. Right, oh. So I've let that run for a few minutes and it sounds different. It's running beautifully. It really is. It's not choking and it's not kind of doing this whop 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 sound anymore. It's actually running really nicely, and the throttle response is very instant. It's actually really quite good. Yeah, that's running heaps better. All right, I'm gonna leave it there for now. All right, I noticed straight away throttle was performing a lot better. Not on this video, but I tried the backfiring and trying to use deceleration, and it was working beautifully. No more popping.